I've spent a lot of time looking at digital art on the internet, and for some reason there is quite a lot of extremely common themes among them that make me unreasonably uncomfortable. So today I thought I would share them with you. Now keep in mind, these aren't really art tips, not in the traditional sense. They're more like things I happen to see on art that annoy me. Let's just say these are things that you probably wouldn't find in your average art book. But I do believe that if artists avoided these things, their art would look a lot better, at least in my opinion. So sit back and relax while I complain about stuff. Okay, first off, really detailed anime eyes on a simplistic body. Apparently, every aspiring artist develops a disturbing obsession with anime, and they want to draw everything they make like it. This isn't really a problem of drawing things badly, it's more like a lack of balance. I mean, you have these huge, detailed, fully shaded eyes, and then you have a simple, unshaded body and face. It's extremely awkward. In other art with these eyes, there is some level of detail that balances the piece. I'm not saying it has to be a completely finished, meticulously crafted figure for this to happen. It just needs to match at some level, you know? It's like putting a bunch of detail on the nose or something, and then making the rest look like a character from one of those animated storytime things. Leaning characters. I see so much art where everyone's character turns into Michael Jackson for some reason. In some cases, it's extreme, and in others, not so much. It really depends. And I'm not saying you can't have a character that is leaning. I'm talking about when people have a figure that is supposed to be standing perfectly straight, but for some reason they look like they're trying to resist getting blown over by hurricane-level winds. I have a guess as to why this is. I think some beginner artists like to build the character up from the bottom, and in the process they end up tilting them. One way to fix this is to just do some light sketching of the figure before anything else to get the position right. You can also flip the canvas occasionally to make sure the character remains straight. Eyes showing through the hair. Now I get that this trope of art is used a lot for several reasons, and I don't really have a problem with it for the most part. If you have bits and pieces of the eye showing through the character's hair to convey emotion easier, I think that's fine. What bothers me is when you have like 90% of the eye covered up, but it's still showing through for some reason. I mean, there's a certain point where you just have to let it get covered up. How long until you're drawing bangs covering up the entire face, and then you have to draw eyes on top of them? Drawing individual strands of hair. Hair is a tricky thing in drawing, and of course, when most people attempt to draw it, the first thing they try to do is draw each and every single strand. Not only is this incredibly inefficient, it also doesn't look appealing. It's like when you draw a tree. You can't draw every individual leaf. You have to imagine it in clumps and stuff. It also annoys me when people do draw the clumps of hair, but then they put a bunch of scribbled lines over it. I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose. You can put more details on the hair, sure, but there's an order and form to it that needs to be applied. Okay, this next one is probably the biggest and most infuriating one by far. Smudge shading. Now, smudge shading is the name I give to a certain way of shading things that I see practically everywhere in amateur art. I don't know why this is. I mean, literally any other type of shading would look better than this one. Hatching, cell shading, I don't care. Well, actually, I guess this is some sort of attempt at soft shading gone horribly wrong. This type of shading has a signature blurry and cloudy look to it. To me, this just looks really ugly and chaotic. Maybe it's because the opacity on it isn't high enough. Maybe the shading just isn't consistent or placed well enough. I don't know for sure, but I do know there's much better ways to do this. I think this is more of a consequence of not really knowing how shading and lighting works, and it is a tricky thing. But I think getting a simple understanding of what it's like before moving on to this kind of stuff would improve it. Now obviously, don't take any of these things personally. Let's not be ridiculous. These are just a list of observations I've seen all over art, especially amateur art, that I feel could be improved. Anyway, my name is Solar Sands, and goodbye.